Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to walk through uploading a Word manuscript to the Hederis app, and then reviewing and adjusting the styles that Hederis applies to that manuscript. And in the process, we'll also talk a little bit about the theory of different kinds of data structures and style usage. So you can see in front of us, we have our Microsoft Word file. There isn't really anything special about it. We're using a lot of Microsoft Word's built-in formatting and styles. Imagining that we just got this from our author, Bram Stoker, and we haven't really made any changes to how he formatted this manuscript. So we're going to go ahead and upload this right to Hederis. We just drag and drop it right onto the browser window. And you can see that Hederis is doing a bunch of things. Behind the scenes, it's actually looking at that Word manuscript, looking at the text, looking at the formatting that we've used, and trying to make some guesses about what the different things are in that manuscript. So it's finished its conversion. That was pretty fast. So we're going to go ahead and download the new Microsoft Word file that Hederis created. This is different than the Word file that we originally uploaded. This actually has the extra style information in it that Hederis will need to help us make a really beautiful book. So you just click to download. And before we dive into reviewing those styles and adjusting them, I want to actually talk a little bit about the theory behind styles and semantic tagging in general. Now, Microsoft Word uses what's called a flat content structure. So if we have our little chunk of content from our book here, if you think about it in terms of an outline, to Microsoft Word, there's no difference in the hierarchy between all the different pieces of your content. So in the Word file, you've got your book, and then you've got headings and paragraphs, and they all exist at the same level of hierarchy inside your book. InDesign also uses this kind of flat structure, which means that if you want to distinguish between the different chunks of content in your book, the different paragraphs, and if you want to create unique designs for those different kinds of paragraphs, you need to give everything a unique name. So, for example, you might have chapter title, chapter opener, body text, extract body, and so on. And you can see how these lists of style names can actually bulk up pretty quickly because everything needs a unique name if you want to be able to design it differently. So, text inside of a letter would need a unique name that's different from the text inside of an extract, that's different from the text inside of a sidebar, that's different from just the text at the top level inside your chapter. This type of flat structure is different from the kinds of structure that you see in markup languages like XML or HTML. So these kinds of languages use what's called a nested structure. So again, if you think about your content like an outline, you can actually have different hierarchies of content inside your file. Inside your book, you can have chapters. Inside those chapters, you have headings and paragraphs, and then you have extracts, and inside those extracts, you have paragraphs nested even further. So you have all these hierarchies of content with all of these subcontainers that hold your different pieces. So again, if we give these pieces style names, you might have titles and plain text, and then inside your extracts, you again have plain text. And because of the way that HTML lets us target content based on what kind of container it's inside of, we can actually reuse style names. So we can reuse that plain text style name inside of our extracts. And because these paragraphs are nested inside an extract container, we can actually design them differently than the plain text that's just at the top level of our chapter. And you can see in the Hederis app that we actually give you ways to do this. So when you're designing your plain text paragraphs, you can design the plain text paragraphs inside of a letter differently than you might design the plain text paragraphs at the top level of a chapter. And you can also design text differently based on where it is in your nested content. So instead of having to have an all new chapter opener style to remove the indent off of the first paragraph in your chapter, you can actually just say any plain text that follows a heading should not have an indent. And it makes it a lot simpler to apply design instructions to all of the chapters and all of the paragraphs in your book and do some targeted designing without having to add extra styles. Now, as we said, Microsoft Word uses a flat structure, and so does InDesign. But HTML and EPUB and Hederis all use nested structures. And just as an aside, this is part of why it's hard to get a really beautiful EPUB out of InDesign, because they use these different kinds of structures in their content. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to get those nesting instructions from the Word file into Hederis. Even though the Word file uses a flat structure and Hederis looks for a nested structure. So what we're going to do is we're going to use styles to do that. So we're going to jump back over and open that Word file that we downloaded. And again, this is the new Word file that Hederis created after it made some initial guesses about what the different things were inside of our Word manuscript. So we'll open up that file. And you can see just visually right off the bat that Hederis added a bunch of new things. Now, before we jump into what those are, one of the best tools at your disposal when you're working with styles is this Styles sidebar, which just gives you a quick bird's eye view of what all the different styles being used in your book are. If you can't see this in Microsoft Word, you can turn it on in your Word preferences. I'm on a Mac, so the steps will be slightly different for a PC user, but go to Word, Preferences, View, and go down to the style area width and put in a width that works for you. I like 2 inches because it lets me see pretty much all my style names in their entirety. All right, and I'm also going to open up my styles pane. This is where we have a list of every possible style that we could apply to our paragraphs. Now, by default, Word opens up just a recommended sort of subset of the styles we could use, but I want to see all the styles, so I'm going to change that here to all styles. And now I have a full list of every style that I could choose from. Now, Hederis uses 4 different kinds of styles: sections, wrappers, paragraphs, and inline styles. And you can actually see 3 of those 4 types of styles right here on this first page. And we've got our pink sections. And sections refer to those top level pieces of content. So your chapters, your appendixes, ad cards, copyright pages, all of those main pieces of content that you think of when you think of a book. Inside of our sections, we have a mix of wrappers and paragraphs. Wrappers, which are mostly these blue paragraphs, are anything that needs that extra level of nesting. So things like extracts or epigraphs, figures, letters, notes, all of those kinds of things that you would typically put in a box. And wrappers all have this head box prefix. And then we have our regular paragraphs. Paragraphs just have the head prefix and then the name of the type of style. And these are all of your regular paragraph level chunks of things like plain text paragraphs, subtitles, chapter titles, that sort of thing. Now the 4th style is inline styles. If we scroll down here, our inline styles all start with this head span prefix. And we don't actually use a lot of these in our Word manuscript. Hederis will automatically preserve your italics and bolds and underlines. So the only time you really need to apply one of these inline styles is if you want to do something special on the design side. So if, for example, you want the first few words of your first paragraph in the chapter to use a special typeface or to be small caps or something along those lines. And then we'd apply this span introductory text style. And to apply it, all we did was select the text and then click on the style name. And we have a few other types of inline styles that you can use, and the way you use them is all listed in our documentation. Now we're going to go through and adjust some of the styles that Hederis applied. So like I said, Hederis made some guesses about what the different pieces of our manuscript are, but it didn't really get all of those right. So we're going to go through and fix it. So we'll start by adjusting our top level chapters and sections. So you can see here, this first section, this should actually be our title page. So to change the style, you just click inside the paragraph and then just click the new style that you want to apply. And you can see here in our style sidebar that the style name has changed from head-sect chapter to head-sect title page. So we'll go through and do the rest of these front matter sections. This is our copyright page. Here we've got our dedication and then a half title, and then a chapter, which is already styled correctly. Now let's go through and adjust our wrappers and paragraphs. So right off the bat, we can see here that Hederis got this big thing wrong, where it thinks that all of the text inside of our copyright page is actually an extract. And that's wrong. This should just be plain text. So removing the extract is actually really easy. We just select the paragraph and delete it. And we want to select the ending paragraph too. Every wrapper has both a start and an end paragraph. And this tells us where the nesting should start and where it should end, so we can know exactly what content should go inside that box. Sections, on the other hand, only have start paragraphs because we assume that as soon as a new section starts, that's where the previous section ends. Now we'll go ahead and select our copyright text paragraphs. Because we want to style multiple paragraphs at the same time, we can actually select inside them, and we don't need to select the entire text of the paragraph. We just need to get somewhere inside all of them. And we'll scroll to find our plain text style name and just click to apply it. And we'll do the same thing here for our dedication. Hederis guessed that because this first paragraph in the dedication was pretty short, that it might be a chapter title. But that's wrong. It's just our regular dedication text. So we'll just click, and there we go. Let's make a few little tweaks to our title page too. We'll change this by to a plain text paragraph. And then we'll tag our author name as an actual author name. So here's our head author name paragraph style. We'll change this subheading here to just a generic subheading. All right, and then there's one more big error that we want to fix here, which is Hederis correctly identified that there is some sort of box here, which is this letter down here. But it tagged it as an extract, and it actually started the extract a little too early. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this start paragraph, and we're going to restyle all these paragraphs as just plain text. And then we're going to insert a new start paragraph at the actual start of the letter. We want this head box letter start, and change the end paragraph to a letter end rather than extract end. And now we actually do have some special styles for letter text. We'll just style this main letter body text as plain text. But we'll style our letter closing with the special closing paragraph style. And we'll style our signature with the special signature paragraph style. All right, so that's all we'll do in this little demo. We'll click Save here. And we'll close our file. And then we're just going to re-upload it to Hederis. Now, because we're using those special Hederis style names that all start with that HED prefix, Hederis will see those style names and it will know to preserve those. So instead of trying to guess what those paragraphs are, the way it did when we originally uploaded our manuscript, it'll actually see that we intentionally applied these Hederis styles and that it should preserve those styles when it converts the content. Our conversion is finished, so now if we look at our little outline here, we can see that Hederis is using either the chapter title or just the type of chapter or section that we applied here, so our copyright page or our dedication, because those didn't have chapter titles. And we'll start by jumping into our title page to take a look at what things look like. They're not going to be pretty because we haven't done any kind of design yet, but we can see if we open up our list of styles here that it's using all of those styles that we applied in our Word manuscript. And we'll jump over to our chapter as well. And again, we'll open up that list and we can see that it has all of those styles that we applied. And we can also see if we choose this letter style just to highlight it and scroll down to find our letter, that it actually converted those flat styles into real nested styles. So we've got a real box around our letter content, which lets us take advantage of all those special design options that nested structures give us. And we'll get into that in a later video.